Let's find out if you're creative or analytical. Clasp your hands together and see which thumb is on top. If it's the left one, you're controlled by your right brain, which is intuitive, creative, visual. And if your right hand is on top, you're probably thinking, this is BS. I mean, it's more of a test for right-handedness or left-handedness. And this right brain, left brain theory is already disproven. But what is this video trying to say? Well, either way, okay, this is not a personality test to find out whether you're creative or analytical. I mean, I'm left thumb on top, but I am a very analytical person, and I created a YouTube channel dedicated to framework thinking. The point of the test is less about which thumb was on top, but rather, how did you feel about creativity? Did you secretly want to hear that you're creative? Especially if you are a numbers person, especially if you think, well, I'm not in any of these creative fields, but I wish I was creative. If that's how you felt, keep watching. And if you wanted to confirm that you're analytical, that is really the measure of intelligence. I just want to say, don't be an intelligent fool. I learned the importance of combining creativity and analysis at Google and Stanford. Creativity is the ability to create something that is novel and useful. And that's actually what every analytical person strives to be, right? You want to find something that other people haven't, and you want to use that insight to do something useful. Creativity really isn't that fluffy, epiphany-driven, muse-driven thing that only people in art and music and all of these things do. Rather, it is the basic skill for problem solving. And so many of us logical thinkers are actually missing out on this fundamental skill. I mean, E.F. Schumacher talked about, don't be an intelligent fool. Any intelligent fool can make things bigger, more complex. Right? We saw this with the new iPad release. Somehow now, iPad Pro is lighter than iPad Air. And all of these new things are making the pencils incompatible with different iPads. And it seems like iPads want to be desktop, and yet the OS doesn't allow us to use all the computing power of the iPad properly. I mean, I think Steve Jobs is probably rolling in his grave because he, on the other hand, was more of a genius. As Schumacher said, it takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to go in the other direction, where you don't try to make things bigger, trying to make it more complex, but what you're trying to do is make something that makes sense, which is what Jobs was trying to do with the iPad at the very beginning. He spotted an empty space that, the laptop and all of its complex features doesn't need to be there for everyday computing. But you want something that's a little bit more than just a smartphone. And that's what I mean by Steve Jobs probably rolling in his grave, because the iPad somehow lost its identity and tries to be bigger and more complex. So how can we avoid being that intelligent fool and actually bring some creativity to our basic problem solving? There are 3 things we can do. Number 1, switch roles. Think as if you were Einstein. Einstein famously said, creativity is intelligence having fun. That's the first thing I need to tell myself to stop being an intelligent fool, right? Stop being serious and look at the problem through someone else's eyes. Like Einstein, right? Someone who's curious, creative, a lot of brain power. What would he do if he was faced with a problem like, what is the business model for human intellect, the school I'm trying to build? Right? He'd probably say, why are you working on that? You should be figuring out how to define human intellect. Or what is the actual relationship between money and education? Once you answer those questions, maybe you can have a better answer to how to define the business model. I don't know, right? It's just to shake me out of my limited thinking and try something new. And this technique is actually used by a lot of creatives who have also created a lot of commercial hits. Because remember, right, we're trying to solve real business problems. And this comes from Brian Wilson, the genius mastermind behind the Beach Boys, as well as Walt Disney himself. Right? And he liked to use the roles the dreamer, the realist, and the critic in order to create something that's both creative and commercially viable. I'm actually doing a workshop on this technique and 3 other ones with my Stanford coach, Josh and Marcus. So if you're interested in diving deeper into this, check out the link below. The second thing is taking Zettelkasten notes. If you've been on the channel for a while, you know I can't live without Zettelkasten notes. And if you're new here, Zettelkasten notes, in essence, are just connected notes. You're connecting ideas from things that you consume, like a YouTube video, books, podcasts, with your fleeting ideas. Your shower thoughts, your walking thoughts, your epiphanies when you're talking with friends, family. And once you connect those together, you'll start to see insights that are yours, right? And you turn them into permanent notes where you distill what you've learned. And over time, you create a web of knowledge. So instead of taking linear notes that go from top to bottom, you're really creating a body of knowledge, a lattice work of ideas and frameworks, like Charlie Munger says. I won't go into the detail of this. I have a detailed video outlining what you want to do, but in essence, you're practicing the muscle of making connections, because you can only create things that are novel and useful if you can make connections between seemingly disparate, unrelated things. And the third technique I use is working at different speed. This is another one from music. It's created by musician Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt. They came up with a bunch of random prompts to help you think laterally when you're stuck or when you're bored by your own work. Right? We've done that too many times where we know it's just going through the motions and nothing is really stimulating for us. The notes would say something like, emphasize differences, or take a break. Or my favorite one, work at different speeds. How would I change how I answer the problem if I only had 10 minutes to do it? Or how would I answer this problem if I had 3 days to work on it? Just by thinking about this, my brain started to realize what's actually important about the problem that I'm working on. And just by using that prompt, I can think of 3 different ways that I can get to an answer. You'll be surprised at how much your brain can adapt just by thinking through these hypothetical speeds that you're working at. Creativity to me is really a proxy for intelligence, and I distilled the 5 rules I learned at Stanford when I did the design thinking workshop. So check that out, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.